Sunday. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of True Story Live. Tonight's episode is entitled Silence is Golden. We're looking forward to Marissa's write-up on Silence is Golden. We'll begin with that in just a few minutes. First, we'll say hello to everyone on the panel on this, the last Sunday in October. And I believe that there will be some people celebrating All Hallows Eve, which, if I'm not mistaken, is tomorrow on a Monday. Fun for the kids, I suppose, on a school day. But yeah, there it is tomorrow. We don't do anything with that, but there it is. Happy holidays to anyone that celebrates that. All right. So let's see. I don't see Glenn in the studio. I didn't know if he was going to be here tonight or not, but maybe he's running late. We'll see if he shows up, but we might be without his wonderful Australian voice this evening, but we'll leave that open for a few minutes and see if he's able to come in. But we still have the other two wonderful ladies with us tonight. For those listening for the first time, my name is Jason Cripps, and I'm the host of the broadcast. But I could not do it without my wonderful panel. And first, we'll start with the writer of the write-up tonight, Silence is Golden. And that is Marissa of the Nez Lover YouTube channel. And we'll talk more about that as the broadcast goes on. But for now, Marissa, say hello to the peoples for me, please.
Hello to the peoples. And no, I do not celebrate Samhain, Samhain, All Hallows Eve, Halloween, whatever you want to call it. I rebuke it and everything it stands for in the name of Jesus. And I hope you'll join me.
Tell us how you really feel.
There'll be none of that going on in the studios, that's for sure. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream. And I'm very glad you're here. If you can share it out on your social media, if you're so inclined, please and thank you. We'd appreciate it. We'll be sharing links throughout the broadcast for my channel, where Jen and Cripps have shown up, for a few other things of interest, and certainly if people who come in the stream, if they want their channel shared out, we can certainly do that as well. Thanks, everybody. I had a good time writing this, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion. I don't know if there's Glenn right there. Hot diggity dog. Yay! That's what I wanted to see.
Hot diggity Aussie.
I'm looking forward to it. Let's get down to it as soon as we say hi to everybody else.
All right. Great. Thank you, Marissa. And we'll hear from my wonderful, amazing wife, Jen. Jen, say hello to the peoples for me, please.
Hello, peoples. Good to be here, as always. And yeah, I'm glad Glenn's here. I'm glad Nez got to do the write-up. I'm really looking forward to it. Let's dive in.
Dive into Silence is Golden, which is interesting since we're doing a broadcast and we can't really be, well, I guess we could be silent, but that'd be a weird 2 hours.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, hello. Sorry. Hold on.
That's all right. That's all right. All right. Thank you, Jen. And last but certainly not least, Glenn from Australia, our friend, is here, and we'll hear from him if he doesn't mind saying hello to the peoples.
Hi, I made it.
You made it. I love it.
We're glad you made it, Glenn.
I was flying on that road. Full of potholes.
Oh, no.
Yay, Glenn!
Full of potholes, dodging kangaroos and brown snakes.
No, it's too late in the morning for kangaroos.
Oh, of course.
And there's so much green feed. I haven't seen many of them lately, so it's getting too hot now. They don't come out.
Oh, okay. Well, just part of my imagination then. I imagine you dodging.
You don't dodge them. You hit a tree if you do that. You hit them.
Oh, okay. Just hit them. They get out in the middle of the road. Yeah, we don't have roos here in the stateside. We have deer, which in some areas you have to be very careful of. Yeah, you don't want to try too hard to avoid them, but if you hit them, it's very damaging to your vehicle. It can be, at least, depending on what kind of vehicle you have. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. All right, with our hellos to the panel over and done with, we will say hello to anyone that's in the chat, and anyone that pops in later, we will take a moment just to welcome them when we get a chance. But for now, Jen, if you could take a minute and say hello to anyone you see in the chat, and then we'll get started.
All righty. Let me pop this back up. All right, we've got Debbie S. Hey, Debbie S. Kelly Ann Dean is here. Jamie Grace. Hey, Jamie. Let's see. And then Nez and I. Woohoo! People are coming in. Nice to see you guys. And we'll continue to say hello as people pop in.
Yep, you got it. You got it. You got it. It looks like Kelly Ann, no big surprise there. She agrees with you, Marisa, on the idea of Halloween. Kelly Ann Dean says Halloween is evil. Right on, Nez Lover. Rebuke it too in Jesus' name. There you go. All right. Well, this is not a Halloween broadcast. This is a Silence is Golden broadcast, and this was brought to us by our friend Marisa Nez Lover channel. And the song is Silence is Golden by the Tremeloes. Did I say that right? I hope so. Link is in the description. Give that a listen when you get a chance. There are times in life when we need to say and do nothing. There are situations that are so aligned that no matter what action or thought we put into it, nothing will come of it. At least not anything helpful, beneficial, therapeutic, or good. No resolutions, no solutions, no validation, no communication or healthy dialogue, no closure. We come face to face with the humbling and sobering fact that there are things in life where we absolutely have no control. Waiting for whatever it may be to pass is frustrating and maddening. For followers of Christ, that means being still and waiting on the Lord. Praying in faith, letting God be God. For anyone, regardless of their faith, it simply means to let things be. Time has a way of working things out. I am not a patient or quiet person by default. My flesh wants things now, and my personality has zero problems making my voice heard. In my spiritual walk with Jesus, I have had to work on wanting to say or do something when it is neither wise, prudent, or beneficial. It is an ongoing struggle, but I am learning. First, I will present some quotes and then some questions. As always, I invite my co-hosts and the audience to submit questions, comments, and ideas of their own. First quote: a time to rend, a time to sow, a time to keep silent, and a time to speak. Ecclesiastes 3:7 KJV. Speech is silver, silence is golden. Thomas Carlyle. Silence is true wisdom's best replay. That's Euripides. Silence is a source of great strength. And that's Lao Tzu. Silence is more eloquent than words. Thomas Carlyle again with that one. Silence is a true friend who never betrays. That's Confucius. When you have nothing to say nothing. Charles Caleb Colton. The music is not in the notes, but in the silence between. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Listen to silence. It has much to say. That's from Rumi. A fool is known by his speech, and a I'm sure it should be wise, and a wise man by silence. Pythagoras. Real action is in silent moments. That's from the writer Ralph Waldo Emerson. Silence is the sanctuary of prudence. Belshazzar Gratian. And if I butchered any of these names, my apologies. Silence is a great teacher, and to learn its lessons, you must pay attention to it. There is no substitute for the creative inspiration, knowledge, and stability that comes from knowing how to contact your core of inner silence. And that's from Deepak Chopra. The word listen contains the same letters as the word silent. Alfred Brendel. To do nothing at all is the most difficult thing in the world. The most difficult and the most intellectual. Oscar Wilde. So that ends the quotes section, and now some questions to answer. What is so challenging about discerning the times when we need to and or do nothing? What times in your life did you act or speak when you should not have? What were the results? Are there warning signs or red flags that come along to alert us to be silent and do nothing? Or do these circumstances pop up unexpectedly and we simply must think on our feet? Are there certain situations that automatically warrant that the correct and wise choice is always silence and inaction? What do we learn by being silent and doing nothing in situations that tempt us to say and do? What times in your life did you wish for or experience others being silent or inactive during a challenging or difficult situation? If you were left alone without people trying to get involved, did it help? And how or why? Does the desire to say or do always stem from a negative place? For example, control, pride, manipulation, or can there be positive intentions? For example, help, comfort, advice. Truly, in my experience, if there is nothing I can do to better the situation, then the best thing I can do is wait. Prayer and talking to God has much better effect on myself and the ongoing situations that trouble me. It is times when I am fussing and ranting and complaining about this or that, which puts an emotional burr in my saddle, that I feel Jesus is giving me the look. He certainly has heard it all before. After I am finished with my fit du jour, as it were, I feel immediate shame and remorse for my hissy crawl under my rock and shut the hell up. When I put things in his hands and praise him, I see miracles happen. I just need to work on getting a whole lot better at realizing much more quickly when I need to chill and be still. Personally, I have found art, writing, and music to be wonderful, therapeutic ways for me to still say and do something in a positive, therapeutic ways for me to still say and do something in a positive way that does not interfere with anyone or anything. It simply is. How much happier would we all be if we could spend more time just simply being? And of course, our friend Paulo, silence can be used to solve problems and a smile to avoid them. And that's our friend Paulo Coelho. There we go. Wonderful. Well, in my opinion, Marisa just keeps getting better and better at these write-ups. This is wonderful. There's a lot to work with here with these questions, and it's an amazing topic, in my opinion. And I think it can apply to believers and non-believers alike. How many situations have all of us been in where we have to make a decision whether to say something to someone in a situation or to keep our mouths shut or to be still and let things blow over? Oh my gosh, I can think of several in my own life related to this particular topic. So thank you, Marisa. This is wonderful. And
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, listen to the song and just click the link and listen to the song when you get a chance. Lots of good quotes in here. We may go back over that depending on how time allows. But let's just check the chat and see if anyone popped in that we need to say hello to. Scrolling back up just a moment, guys. Okay, we see Janet. Our friend Janet is in the chat. I think we said hello to Jamie. I'll say hello to her again. Jamie. Aussie Linda. Hi from Australia. Hello, Aussie Linda. Welcome. Please make Linda feel welcome if you haven't said hello to her yet. And you're very welcome, Aussie Linda. We're glad that you're here. And she says she's from Queensland. Well, I'm sure Glenn would know where that is. I am not totally familiar with all the geography of Australia, but that would make sense. This is me is in the chat. Hello, this is me. Glad that you've welcome. Welcome. Make this as me feel welcome in the chat, please. And let's see. Check and make sure that's everyone. Celine. Hello, Celine. Welcome. I hope you're doing okay. Glad that you're here as well. And that is everyone I see thus far. Okay, great. And like I said, like we said at the beginning, we'll try to make sure to say hello to anyone else that pops in the chat as we go. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for being part of tonight's broadcast. And as always, as Marisa said at the beginning, and also during the write-up, we definitely want to hear from you. So on each of these questions, if you would like to put an answer in the chat, we'd be more than happy to share that answer on air. Okay. So the last quote is from Oscar Wilde, and it says, "To do nothing at all is the most difficult thing in the world, the most difficult and the most intellectual." So the first question is, what is so challenging about discerning the times when we need to and or do nothing? What's so challenging about figuring out or discerning the times when we should do nothing? What do you think, Jennifer? Do you want to take a shot at this one? What's so challenging about knowing when we're supposed to do nothing and when we're supposed to do something? Why is that so hard?
Oh my gosh. How long do we have?
2 hours. Well, hour
Not
and 45
long enough.
minutes. Not long enough.
Oh man. Gosh. That is a tough question, Nez. I think sometimes it's our gut instinct to react. Sometimes it's to defend. Sometimes it's to over-explain. I think for me, I can just only speak for me. Sometimes I have to sit in it a while and just really let the emotions calm down and then decide kind of how I want to proceed. For me, a lot of times, all those emotions make it a little hard for me to hear God's still small voice. And there have been many times, not all the time, but many times I've regretted not sitting in the silence.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. So I'm learning as I get older that that's a good thing. So that's my answer.
It is a tough question, Jen.
It really is.
I'm gonna choose to do ladies first. So we'll ask Marisa now. In this write-up, a lot of the write-up, she will answer the questions within the write-up, but this time I'm noticing that she did not do that as much. It's more about asking the questions and the quotes, and she definitely says a few things in here. But wow, this is wonderful. So now I don't feel strange when I ask her a question, and I have already read it in the write-up and know what she's going to say. I'm just all on the edge of my seat to find out her answers to this. So Marisa, what is so challenging about discerning the times when we need to and or do nothing? What do you have to say?
For me, I'm a passionate person, and it's real easy for me to get caught up in the emotion and the heat of the moment, if that's a positive thing or a negative thing. I'm the kind of person that, at the very least on the inside, if someone is giving me a stimulus that's either positive or negative, I'm either hooray or it's on. It's either one or the other in my heart at the very least. And it's really hard for me to keep a rein on my mouth, my actions, my behavior. I've struggled with that most of my life. It's hard for me to not just get swept up in the moment and just let whatever I say happen, and God only knows what that might be. And like I said, then Jesus gives me the look, and
that was great.
But I'm just speaking for me. I think part of it is just because I'm a passionate person, and it's real easy. I believe, as a creative, artistic person, I perceive and sense strongly enough that it affects me in that way, that I react, or at least tempted to react in a stronger, more extreme way, whether it's good or bad. That's just me. That's how I am. I feel more strongly. I'm not saying I'm better or worse than anybody. I'm just saying that's what I believe is going on with me, because I'm open to energies, positive and negative, I'm much more sensitive because I believe of being artistically and musically sensitive and in tune. I think that also makes me a little more fired up and passionate as far as acting and reacting. So I don't know about anybody else. That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. So
Sure. Thank you, Marisa. Before we hear from the guys, our new friend Aussie Linda has an answer in the chat. I just wanted to put this up on the screen and read what she has to say. I have a problem with diplomacy. I always speak my mind and never shy away from the truth. That's where my lack of diplomacy gets me into trouble. That's from Aussie Linda. Thank you. Just jumping right in there, Linda. We love it. We love that you're just answering the questions in the chat. Thank you so much for doing that. And yeah, I understand diplomacy can be hard in certain situations, especially. I think the difficulty for someone that it does want to be honest and tell the truth is how we say that, how we deliver the truth to someone else. I'll say more on that on my answer, but we're going to hear from Glenn first. What do you think, Glenn? How do you want to answer this one? What is so challenging? Or when I ask you a question, I have to assume that you're thinking maybe about the past, because right now I'm sure everything's perfect the way you react to everything, right? So
don't assume.
Don't assume.
I'm going to pay out on you one of these days. that sly comment. You can't help yourself, can you? People should take notice of what Cripps is doing, and we should highlight this to everyone.
I love it.
He's triggering you, Glenn.
Oh, no, yeah. Well, at least he doesn't pretend that he doesn't try to get me all stirred up either. So
that's the deal. It's give and take, isn't it? If you dish it out, you got to take it back.
That's true.
Then it works.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, not difficult, to be honest. The number one is speak up, but don't do it in anger.
Right.
But just put your point and really. You don't deliberately set out to hurt someone. I mean, you just look. Basically, it comes down to think before you speak.
Yeah,
that's it. It's not a challenge. It just takes a few extra seconds just to process it.
Yeah,
and it does you no value to hurt somebody.
No, I would agree. So you can present the truth. It's like I was saying. It's all in how you present it, but you can always be a person that is direct and that does tell the truth. You don't have to gild the lily, so to speak, and go around the point. You could make your points, just do it in a kind way. I
think it's only fair. It's only fair to the other person that you're having this conversation with to tell the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, that if you don't. Well, that's not fair, surely.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because and if you're looking at a situation where there may be conciliation or resolution required, well, the first thing you need is the truth.
Yeah.
So,
thank you, Glenn.
Not difficult. Aussies are straightforward too, by the way. We tend to speak our minds. All
of you?
Pretty much.
Okay. As a group, as a country. I get it. Before I answer, Jamie Gray says, for a long time, for me, the challenge came from my spiritual immaturity. I did not have a lot of self-control yet to wait and think things through. Yeah, I definitely can relate to that. And Janet says, yes, the scripture says, be slow to speak, quick to hear, slow to wrath. True. Thank you. Let's see. And then Janet continues, I like to say, if we have the Holy Spirit inside us, then we do have self-control, but we must yield to it and put on the new man and walk in the Spirit, not the flesh. Yeah, that's for believers especially. That seems to be the struggle, and it is a decision, in my opinion, Janet. I'm not sure where you stand on that, but it sounds like to me that we're on the same page of how we interpret that. Paul makes it very clear, you know, it's a daily choice to walk in the spirit rather than the flesh. He definitely seems to understand that it is an ongoing battle, you know, a spiritual battle. And so this ties in right into the topic. So my answer, what is so challenging about discerning the times when we need to and or do nothing? Well, like Janet and Jamie, it took me a long time to learn this. Earlier on in my life, I've definitely been a truth teller. I did learn to lie to my parents from time to time to get out of trouble because I was always in trouble for something. But I didn't lie to other people generally. I would tell the truth. But my delivery could be very direct, and I learned over time that that's not always the right way to do it. I'm sure feelings got hurt and things like that. But I would react rather than thinking about what I was saying, and rather than taking the time to do nothing, which is what the question's about. Discerning the times when we need to and or do nothing. I would react mostly. And then I learned over time a couple things. One thing is to not do anything while I'm in the middle of the emotions of something. I have found that if I choose not to react, I've even said, okay, I'm going to think about what you just said, and I will respond later. And that has been a wise thing. Now, there are people that may disagree with that. You know, people want you to react right in the moment. They don't want to wait for your response. But I can't help it. I have learned that if I react out of the emotions of something, then a lot of times I think about it later and I regret reacting the way that I did. So in most cases, I try to wait until the emotions die down a little bit. And so that if I'm reacting from an intellectual place, a well thought out process about what was said or what was done rather, sorry. That has been helpful to me. But Marisa is asking what is so challenging? Why is it so challenging? I think it's because as people, you know, when we're in relationships with people and they say something or do something, our gut reaction, knee-jerk reaction, is to react to it right then. It's not to sit back and wait and do nothing. It's to respond right away, tit for tat, so to speak.
I think sometimes it's ego that makes us, our ego is hurt, which makes us lash out.
Right. Agreed. And as we mature, which is, let's see, I think Jamie was, or let's see, let me make sure before I attribute. Oh, hello to Rachel. Rachel popped in the chat. Hello, Rachel. We're glad that you're here. Okay. So Jamie said for a long time, for me, the challenge came from my spiritual immaturity. Did not have a lot of self-control yet to wait and think things through. Okay. So that was Jamie that said that. And I'm, what you're saying, Jen, and what Jamie has said, you know, and my answer, spiritual maturity and even just general maturity, I think, can help you take time to think before just acting. But I agree with Marisa in the way that she formed the question. It can be difficult to discern when you should react immediately and when you should take some time or do nothing. And this idea will, you know, fill itself in a little bit more with some of these questions that Marisa's asking. There's really good questions coming up. All right, so that's that one. Let me just check the chat and make sure no one else answered before we move forward. I think I saw. Okay, this is me. She put the question in the chat. Appreciate that. So her answer is, or their answer is that all depends on the personal motives for deciding not to. Okay, appreciate that. This is me. I'm not sure. Not sure if that's what kind of answer that is. That all depends on the personal motives for deciding not to. Okay. I mean, I get what you're saying. Yeah, each situation is dependent on the situation itself. Gotcha. Hello to Quiet Listener. Quiet Listener is Marisa Neslover Peep.
Hello, quiet listener.
And please go visit Quiet Listener's channel. She has a lot of flute and Native American stories on her channel. So if you get a minute, go over and say hello to her channel for us. I met her last night in Marisa's chat for her broadcast yesterday evening on Neslover's channel, and I invited her to come tonight, and there she is. So thank you for coming. We appreciate you. Please make her feel welcome in the chat. Thanks, guys. All right, next question is, what times in your life did you act or speak when you should not have? And then the follow-up question, what were the results? So 2 questions. What times in your life did you act or speak when you should not have? And what were the results? And we'll go men first this time, and we'll start with Glenn. Glenn, do you have any stories to tell us about what, if there ever have been in your entire life, any times that you didn't wait to act or speak when you acted or spoke when you should not have? And then what were the results of that?
How long have you got?
We've got just under an hour and a half.
Yeah, I'd be the king of stuffing that one right up. In terms of probably up to, trying to think of an age, before my 40s. As I said in the chat, it was about going on the defensive, just, reacting.
Yeah.
And I realised that it really wasn't that nice. So, I was the idiot, not the other person. You know what I mean? It was, you always say, you're wrong, but really, isn't hindsight marvelous?
It is.
It's a gift.
What a dickhead! So essentially, absolutely. So yes, I learned that the hard way by getting the chip knocked off my shoulder and going down the well and have to drag myself out of it with a bit of help from some other people.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a popular phrase, hindsight is 20/20, and then somewhere along the line, someone added to that and said always, simply always. Hindsight is always 20/20, and it is. Yeah. I mean, nothing you could do about it. We don't have time machines. At least we don't have access to them if they exist. So when you do or say something, you can't go back and change it. All you can do is apologize and do better next time.
But once again, you need to stuff it up in order to get to the point where you realize that you did stuff it up.
Well, that's true. How else are you going to learn?
You can't come from a place of perfection, can you? You've got to go through it, and you've got to make the mistakes, and you've got to see the error of your ways, so to speak, and make a decision whether or not you want to make changes or you want to stay the same. It's a free choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I can't think of a specific time. There are so many. So I'll just say, as I was answering the first question, I've done it many times. Fortunately for me, more, in the area of 20 years ago, rather than recently. But once I learned this lesson of waiting to act or speak until I allowed if I had feelings about a certain situation, and that did come, as Glenn says, from putting my foot in my mouth. I think he said, go down the well. I'm sure all the regional ways that people answer this question can be different, but it's the same. Put my foot in my mouth. And a lot of times it was because I didn't have all the information. I would react to something that I heard someone else say, or react to something the person might have been joking, is not being serious about what was being said. And I react or speak out of turn, and then find out that A, I didn't have all the information. B, it was something that never happened and someone lied to me. That happened a lot. That happened a lot in school. That's a school thing, or someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, so and so did this or said this," and you learn from those things. I mean, if you're paying attention, you definitely learn from those things. The result were various depending on what the situation was and who the people were, but in each case, if I reacted out of turn, or I didn't have enough information, or it was based on faulty information and I reacted, I would have to go back and apologize. And it's hard. It's hard to go to someone with your hat in hands and apologize for your behavior, the way you reacted to something, especially if it was false information, or if what you're reacting to never even happened. So I guess what I'm saying is that that's part of it too, is make sure that what's being said or done, make sure it's actually something true that's going on or had happened. But during school, that happened all the time. As I remember people saying somebody said something, and a lot of it's just rumor and gossip, but you react to that stuff and then find out later that it's, someone said that to you to get a rise out of you, and you took the bait. That happened a lot, and the results aren't good. Okay, that's all I have to say about that one. Let's go to Marisa next on this one. What times in your life did you act or speak when you should not have, and what were the results, Marisa?
Good Lord, we could pack a lunch and sit in the shade and make a day of it, couldn't we?
A weekend. No.
Scoot over, Glenn. You're not the only one who could go on about this. If I had kept my fool mouth shut, if I would have not acted hastily, I would have not gone to the university that I went to pursuing special ed right away. I would have pursued, fine art sooner than later. I certainly wouldn't have made the choices as far as some of the relationships I was in. I certainly wouldn't have gotten married when I did. Some pretty big decisions here, some pretty big things that if I just would have taken some time and thought things through and listened for the Lord and, been quiet and still for a while, I just kept moving. I remember 20s and early 30s, especially my 20s, I just kept moving. I kept thinking, if I'm not doing something right now, then what the fuck am I doing? And I'm sorry, that's what I thought at the time. That's exactly what my thought process was. I wasn't very in touch with my spiritual walk then. I was much more in the world, and that's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, I grew up in church, but I didn't have a close relationship with the Lord at that time.
Right.
It didn't even occur to me that, maybe if I shut up and get into the Word and pray and seek God and just be still for a while, I might have some clarity. I felt like I was filling a void, and like my purpose was to just keep busy and keep loading more things on more things. And I felt justified if I was staying busy. And I think that's a temptation that some of us fall into as well. I think some of us are told that if we're not doing something all the time, then we're being lazy, we're being apathetic, we don't really care.
Right.
I've heard it all, so for me, the carnal mind says, well, keep staying busy, keep staying active, keep doing something.
Yeah.
And for me, that wasn't always the right course of action. When you're following action up with more action, when do you rest? When do you have the time to think and have a moment of thought, of solitude, where you can just, it never occurred to me that I should take the time out for that. I really didn't have anybody to guide me along that way. So, I'm not playing the blame game. Well, I kind of am, but really, it was on me that I didn't take the time to be still and chill and think things through and have a little more patience. I let fear motivate me. Like, if I don't do this, then people are going to say this and that, and people are going to think this and that. Oh my God, I can't believe the crazy things that I went through.
Yeah.
Thinking that I had to do these things to be justified and validated as a grown adult.
Yep.
If I could go back to my past self, I would just, smack. It's like, what in the world are you doing?
Right.
But again, there's that phrase, hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah.
And history makes sense in reverse, doesn't it?
It does.
So,
it does.
But I'd like to think I've learned, at least something along the way.
Sure.
So
I'm sure you have, Marisa. I'm sure you have.
I'm trying. I know
Go.
my critics may say otherwise, but I'm trying. I really am.
Yeah. Well, Marisa, Janet says something along the same lines of some of the things you just said. Janet says, I hate that in church environments, especially years ago in healing churches, you were expected to say you were always well and lie if you were sick. Yuck. Wow. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. I remember even some of that when I grew up. My grandmother was very much a stage mom where you put on that brave face and you always look like you're doing the right thing. Oh, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Even when things are not fine. I've been through that. So I understand, Janet. Thank you.
It's appearances in churches, at least. It's all about appearance. You're supposed to, church is for everyone. And in my opinion, church is for people that are sick or people that want to get closer to God or they want to learn scripture. It's not to pretend like everything's perfect and you don't need any help from anything or anyone, but that's
exactly. And growing up in the Lutheran church that I did, it was the social club. It was wear your best, sit there and be well behaved.
Yeah.
Don't look like you have any problems. Oh, don't tell anybody that we might need a few groceries. Don't tell anybody that maybe we could use a little help with this or that or with bills or whatever. Oh, no. People were more embarrassed about being in need than they were being concerned about wanting to help one another.
That's a great point. Yeah.
And that's a big shame when church, which is supposed to be a place of help and ministry and spiritual triage, has turned into a social club where everybody's just busy about keeping up appearances.
You nailed it.
Shame on all the places like that.
Yes, you nailed it, Marisa. This is something Jen has talked a lot about on past broadcasts about where she went to a church and she opened up in one of the smaller groups and everybody looked at her like she had 3 heads. She's opening up about some of her struggles and thinking that people would say, oh yeah, honey, I've been through that too. And to be supportive of her. But instead, everybody looked at her like, why would you share that? Well, it's the perfect place to share it. And there's this expectation that everyone just what are they there for in church? If part of it isn't to have someone come alongside you and commiserate with you, whatever your struggles might be. It certainly is clear in scripture that that's what Jesus was doing. He was coming alongside people that were sick, people that were demon possessed, people that were in need of a savior and helping them. In my opinion, this is a whole nother topic for another time, but a lot of the churches, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of the churches have lost sight of that, in my opinion. And Marisa made a really good point, and it ties into what Janet said, and it ties into the stories that I've heard from Jen and my own personal experience. It's just a shame. Okay, Aussie Linda says, I don't react because of emotion, as I am not easily offended. Well, there's that Aussie trait that we all know and love. The only time I take offense is if someone is deliberately mocking God. Deliberately mocking God. Yes, I'm with you there. I don't understand why people have to resort to that. I mean, clearly, you can decide to not believe in God, or for whatever reason not believe in God, and you can say that out loud and not have it be mocking or attacking. And in the same way, you can believe in God and also not attack people that don't. I mean, that part goes both ways. But why can't you just have your own beliefs and your own opinion and that be the end of it? But I understand, Aussie Linda. Yeah, that bothers me when people mock God, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure they'll answer for that on their own. What do you think, Jen? What times in your life did you act or speak when you should not have, and what were the results?
I was having a really hard time thinking of a time because I usually swing to the absolute opposite of this.
Right. Okay.
I usually cry or just freeze, sometimes fawn. And then I don't say anything. And there's been a huge portion of my life where I did not share how what was said or what was done hurt my feelings. And I probably had many times where I was angry, but it came out as hurt, and I didn't even acknowledge the fact that it made me angry. And then I was one of those people that would ruminate and think on just over and over and over what I should have done and what I should have said and what I could have done and what I could have said, and just yikes. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I started to realize that for myself, I had a responsibility, and for the relationship, to speak up and say, hey, this really hurt my feelings. Now, it wasn't so much to get an apology. It was just more about me standing up for myself and speaking up for myself. But I'm sure there's been some times that I flew off the handle. I just don't remember because it was so little. Like, the only thing I could think of was one time I got in a fight with my little brother, and I remember I threw one of our TV remote controls at the fireplace, and I was yelling at him, and I don't even remember what we fought. We fought a lot. He was my little brother, 5 years younger. And I remember I was so angry. I left the house and I was wearing just my socks, and I took a walk around the neighborhood. We were okay after that, but that's the only time I was like, okay. Yeah. So I usually would swing to the other side, but there's still, it definitely wasn't, what is the title of the write-up again? Silence is Golden. Is that it? Help me out here, Cripps. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. It wasn't a peaceful silence.
Sorry.
Sitting there like,
yeah,
hurt and angry, and then not say anything. But over the last few years, I've been getting better with the waiting, which is difficult. Waiting in peace. You know what I mean? Like, there's waiting where you are ruminating and, upset underneath the surface. You're not really letting it come out. But just speaking up and telling someone, hey, that hurt my feelings, or hey, that doesn't make me feel safe, or, whatever. But I've definitely gotten better at the waiting, and especially when you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And it's like, okay, I just need to chill for a while. So
yeah, gotcha.
It's a learning curve for both spectrums. I think it's a learning curve.
I would agree. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'd like to say hello to the Light of Christ that popped in the chat while we were answering some questions, and Meyer Buttricks. Welcome, you folks. I love that name. That's a good one.
Hello, Meyer.
You said butt cheeks.
I love it.
Not butt cheeks, butt reeks. Okay.
The Light of Christ is a friend from CES, and Meyer is another one of Nez's peeps, I think. And so, but we welcome both of you to the broadcast. Thank you so much for coming. And before we get to the next question, I'm just going to make sure that there aren't any other answers. I read Aussie Linda. Just scrolling down, guys, just a moment. Just make sure I've got anyone that answered the question. And almost to the bottom. Okay, let's see. There was one thing. Light of Christ, we are doing well, and I hope you are doing well as well. I did see one from This Is Me, and there were some. Okay, here we go. This Is Me says, Jason, about attacking others for having opinions or faiths, then why is there a divide at all? Well, I was saying that we do get attacked. So I would assume the divide is because, well, I don't assume. My observation is that there's a divide because people can't just agree to disagree. We've talked about this on the broadcast many times. People can't just have their opinion and let that be the end of it. But we've proved that we can do that. Glenn disagrees with the three of us on some Bible stuff, belief in Christ and things like that. But yet we have these broadcasts every week. There's never an argument or fight or anything like that. And I have other friends that are not believers, and we can have conversations, adult conversations about quote unquote religion or spirituality, and it not be a big argument. But in quote unquote Christian circles, you have people that believe, as we've mentioned many times, people believe in baptism or think that you need that to be saved. Other people say you don't. Other people think it's, you get saved based on your works. Other people say, no, you get saved by Christ alone through faith alone with nothing added. And then, then you have other things that I'm sure Marisa disagrees with me on, and I disagree with her, but yet we are people that can respect one another's opinions on things. And I'm not thinking anything specific. I'm just saying that there are believers that might disagree on the finer points of certain things, and it doesn't have to be a big argument. So thank you for weighing in. This is me. I appreciate that. So the divide comes, in my opinion, from the people that can't just agree to disagree and still treat each other with respect, which I think Glenn said in the chat toward the end here. Let me try to find that. Oh, he says respect costs nothing. I'll put that on the screen. Respect costs nothing. And I think that's what caused the divide, is a disrespect for what other people believe. And you can't just let someone else have a different opinion. I think that's where it comes from. That's my opinion on that. All right. We'll move on to the next question. Are there warning signs or red flags that come along to alert us to be silent and do nothing? Or do these circumstances pop up unexpectedly and we simply must think on our feet? I'll go first on this one. Are there warning signs? I can think of times in the past when I was in the middle of reacting to something, and my inner voice, it could be your conscience or your, if you're a believer, you could say it's the Holy Spirit, any number of red flags, and I just blew right by them. Warning signs or red flags, this internal thought in you that said, hey, just cool your jets. You need to think about this. But nope, too late. Already said something, already reacted, and then we're off to the races. So I have in the past noticed that I think it happens in all of us. I think all of us have a certain level of conscience that tells us, that tries to regulate us from going off half-cocked, so to speak. And that the, cooler heads prevail. The idea of, not getting all bent out of shape about something and taking some time to think about it. It's a lot better, as I was saying to the answer to the first question, I've learned to not react as much in the moment and to think about things before reacting, and that comes from experience. So I think for me at least, in my answer, there have been signs or red flags, and they're mostly internal. And then after the fact, they're external in that you learned from your past mistakes. And so there's kind of a wait a minute attitude, at least for me, before just jumping into some kind of reaction. So then the second part of the question, or do these circumstances pop up unexpectedly? We simply must think on our feet. That can happen too. And I've been very transparent about me having a problem with, especially in the past, it's a lot better now, but road rage, not following anyone home to their house or flipping people off or anything anymore, but someone cutting you off and disrespecting you in traffic, acting like they're the only ones on the road, that has really bothered me. And that is something that pops up unexpectedly. It's not even a person that you know. It's someone that just doesn't care that you're there and is being unsafe. And I react strongly to that. And it's unexpected. Now, when I drive, I almost expect that will happen. Every time I get behind the wheel, I try to go out with the expectation that someone is going to cut me off, someone is going to stop short, or someone is the light turns green and they're not going to go because they're looking at their phone. any number of things. I try to expect that it's going to happen. Now, something that applies to this, when I know I'm on a long road trip, there's almost an extra layer of patience that I feel on a long trip, knowing that the longer I'm going to drive, the more instances of this are going to happen. So it's almost like there's even more preparation for these unexpected things to pop up. But yeah, so for me, the warning flags and red flags, warning signs and red flags, I think we all have them. And then we have the other circumstances that pop up unexpectedly, and we have to make a decision pretty quickly. Think on our feet, as Marisa says in the question, and decide how we're going to handle a certain situation that we're unprepared for. And for me, over time, like I said, I've learned from these times when I did not take my time and be still and know that he is God. And I've paid the price for that in various ways. Okay, let's hear from Glenn, and then we'll hear from the ladies. Glenn, are there warning signs or red flags that come up for you and alert you to being silent and doing nothing, or do these circumstances pop up unexpectedly? We simply must.
I tend to agree with what you said. Oh, look, just better project that to the chat and everybody. I said something that I agreed with what you said.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think it's both circumstances. I think a lot of this comes from when you feel like you just don't have enough information yet to react, and you've got to, or respond, not react necessarily, to respond. So you put your head in and just need to. So that's a bit of a skill to know how much you need and what you need to wait for, because so often you can go off half-cocked and really you have not the full picture. And then you think, oh my goodness, I've really stuffed, or as you would say, or as we would say too, put your foot in your mouth. So
yeah,
I think just being aware that we do need a picture before we go off on half a picture.
Right. Agreed. Thank you, Glenn. Well,
Thank you.
I'm not going to get a big head because you agree with something I said, I promise. So thank you for that. Let's go to Jen next on this one. Then we'll hear from Marisa. What do you think, Jen? Are there warning signs or red flags that come along? And what about those times that circumstances pop up immediately or unexpectedly when we have to think on our feet?
Thinking about a recent one that happened over the weekend.
Sure.
I just had someone sort of ambush me, and I just sat there staring. I wasn't sure how to react. Luckily, time was running out and they had to leave. And I was like, all right, saved by the bell in a sense.
Yeah.
Which helped, because I don't think how I would have reacted. Honestly, in the moment, I was tempted to over-explain myself,
right,
which I really would have been upset with later.
Right.
And the red flags, I think, I don't know about you guys. I don't know if this is the same feeling everybody gets or if it's just different for everyone. But I get this feeling in my stomach and it like shoots up into my chest, like kind of like a mini volcano when someone does something that really upsets me and like pisses me off.
Sure.
Now, I'm not the kind of person that just lets it rip. Honestly, that volcano eruption inside of me is new because before I was so, I don't know if you would call it brainwashed, but I just, I grew up with a really angry father. I didn't like it. It scared me. I didn't want to be scary to other people. And then growing up in the church, just with this idea that anger and being angry was bad. Yeah. It was ugly. It was bad. It was not okay. It wasn't right. It wasn't Christian. It wasn't godly, all of that stuff.
Right.
So I really, I don't know if you want to say I numbed myself or if I just stuffed it or I just didn't validate the anger that I was feeling or could potentially feel in the situation.
Yeah.
But it was very rare for me to feel angry. But now I know it's that feeling that sort of shoots up into my chest where I can see how people would, it would just overflow out of their mouth. You know what I mean? I think where the barrier that stops it for me, it's pretty thin. I mean, it's still substantial enough to stop me, but
Yeah.
that's still like, oh, I can see through it. It's like vellum. But that would definitely be a red flag for me. I even think, because it's not just anger, it's like emotion. It's a whole bundle of emotions that sort of rage inside of you when someone does something or says something that is disrespectful or hurtful,
Right.
or
Right.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So usually, I guess for me, that's sort of a red flag to chill. Walk
Right.
away, get off the phone, take a break.
Right.
And some situations, like the one I'm in right now, it's been a couple months, and I'm definitely more calm, but I still don't feel like it's the right time to speak up yet. So I'm still waiting.
Yeah.
And I don't want it's not like dragging it out and I'm ruminating every day. It's not that kind of a thing at all. It's a very interesting situation, but
Yeah.
there is peace there, and just waiting for, I've been praying a lot and just asking God, all right, show me the time where I can reach out and share some things and do it with love and respect. And,
Uh-huh.
and I'm only responsible for how I react to the situation. Like I don't want to be manipulative. I don't want to be guilt or shaming or rude or disrespectful, anything like that. I just am going to share where I'm coming from, and
Right.
then the other party can respond how they would like.
I love it.
So, yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to get to Marisa in just a second. I wanted to read before I lose it on the page, before it scrolls up and it's gone, where I have to look for it. Aussie Linda says, Cripps, I have done this before and immediately stopped and apologized and said a quick prayer for guidance. That was in the past. I've learned patience from the Lord. So thank you, Aussie Linda. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's kind of that kind of falls in line with the way I feel like I'm reacting to situations. Hello also to Grumpy Troll that popped in just now. Hello, Grumpy Troll. Welcome.
Hi, Grumpy.
Grumpy. We love it. Thank you for being here. There was one more I wanted to read, Marisa, and then we're going to hear from you. This is me, says, continuing to live in a mindset of hypervigilant self-protection by looking out for red flags is, in my opinion, a form of self-harm. Okay. Thank you. This is me. Appreciate your comment. I know for a lot of people who have been through a lot of abuse, yeah, they definitely are looking for red flags because they need to protect themselves, or they feel like they do for a period of time. And then as a person heals, then they don't have to do that as much. I'm not sure what that's related to, except for the red flags were in the last question, warning signs and red flags. No, it's in this question that we're answering now, but I'm not sure how that relates to hypervigilance. Maybe you're just sharing. But thank you either way. All right. And
I wanted to say something to that.
Oh, please.
I think when you're in a place of hypervigilance, because people can, and I've been here, where
Yeah.
you think everyone could potentially be an enemy or someone that's harmful or hurtful or whatever.
Right.
It can really block you from people that don't mean you any harm, that are
Right.
still human and might make mistakes and might hurt you.
Sure.
But gosh, I've been in that place, the hypervigilance. It's scary.
Yeah.
And it's not fun at all. And so I can see what she means by self-harm.
Okay.
Keeps you kind of in a bubble.
Yeah.
It can,
Do you think that people that have been through a lot of abuse, it's almost like they have to be in that place of looking for red flags for a while, like I was saying, or?
That's a good question. Have to be? I don't think they have to be, but I think it's normal for a season.
Yeah.
I think it can be maybe harmful to themselves if they stay in that place. For me, yeah, I was really, and it wasn't, when I first got out of my marriage, I was definitely in that place, and like, picture me cowering and like eyes darting everywhere, like, oh God.
Yeah.
Part of it was because I did have some not so savory people, some unsavory
Right.
characters come out of the woodworks, and I felt like I
Right.
had a target on my back. Being newly
Blood in the
divorced,
water.
and
Yeah.
it just was chum buckets.
That's right.
But I think what helped me with that was educating myself on red flags in regard to other people. Getting a little bit off topic here, but just educating myself what to look for, because I think people that are dangerous, they have tells, and if you
Yeah.
can pick it out, it switches from being hypervigilant to being educated.
Oh,
There's like a little bit of a line between the
there
two.
it
I
is.
think someone can be educated and still be dealing with hypervigilance,
Sure.
but once you get confident in that education of what red flags to look out for, then you can
Yeah.
walk away from people or put up
Yes.
boundaries, when
That
you
was
see those red flags.
That was a really good point. That was a really good point, Jen. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for responding. All right, Marisa, thank you for your patience. You're up on this one now. Are there warning signs or red flags that come along to alert us to be silent and do nothing? Or do these circumstances pop up unexpectedly and we simply must think on our feet? What do you say, Marisa?
I say both. And
Yeah.
for me, if it's something that is going to tempt me to respond in a way that's going to be physically harmful to me or someone or something else, or harmful in any way, emotionally, spiritually, what have you, if it's going to cause harm, then I try my best to just chill out, back away, set up a boundary, and regroup. I don't, it doesn't always work that way, it might,
Right.
but the best intentions, but that's my goal, is to try and do that when something comes up to speaking of red flags, if consider where the stimuli to respond to is coming from. If it's
Right.
coming from someone who's toxic, who's negative, who is trying purposefully to provoke you
Yeah.
to do something harmful to yourself or other people or other things, then I think once you recognize, consider the source, that can kind of help you, I think, filter out what needs responded to, and when and at what time, and what just needs walked away from. If you're dealing with something that comes from someone or somewhere where there is no sane relationship, where there is nothing but provocation just for the sake of provocation, then you recognize that makes it a lot easier to just back away from, I think, in my experience.
That is a timely point, Marisa.
And thank you. And I think that um, there's good sense in being vigilant, and I understand what it's like to be hyper vigilant when you've come through a trauma, and you do become hyper vigilant, especially when
Yeah.
you become educated. It's a result of becoming educated, I think.
Yeah.
Because
That's a
once
good
you
point.
know what to look for, then you're going to be looking all the time. You're going to be up on your watchtower with your binoculars and scanning the horizon. What's that? What's that? I went through that with with some not so nice people on YouTube. So I've been there where you've been through that kind of trauma, and then you think, "Holy cow!" Well, and you're paranoid, and you think, well, this is probably because of them, or that's from them, or I mean. But I think once a little time goes by, and you see that not everything comes from the same source, and not everything is the fault of the one person or one
Right.
thing.
Right.
I think that allows the dust to settle, and you can still be vigilant without being hyper vigilant, and you can still, uh, you know, identify certain things and pick them out sooner than later as to what needs responded to in what kind of
Oh,
way.
yeah.
As far as things that do require an action, and I really didn't put a question like that. If someone's in need of help, physical help, or a backup, if somebody's getting abused in front of you, in public, somewhere where it's right in your face, then I think you have every right to take action at that time. If someone's taken a swing at somebody, especially someone who's weaker, smaller, or older, or what have you, I think it's your duty as a decent human being to do something to stop it. I really do. So,
Well,
wow,
that
I feel
answers
like
the next.
yeah, I
That
think I've
answers the
gone
next
on just a
question.
bit.
No, that's okay. No, you went on just the right amount, but that answers the next question that you put in here, which is, are there certain situations that automatically warrant that the correct and wise choice is always silence and inaction? You gave a couple good examples of when you should react, definitely. So while we have you up here,
Right.
are there ways that automatically warrant that the wise choice is silence and inaction? So you gave a good example of when you should definitely react. So when do you think, Marisa, it's time to just be silent? And are there situations that come up that
I
automatically?
think so when it's involving other people's business as far as their interpersonal relationships, particularly if they are lovers or spouses or what have you. You walk a real sticky road when you think you can either be friends with one or the other, or you find something out about one that the other one really should know. You could,
Right.
but what are you going to do? You're
Yeah.
putting yourself between two people who, chances are you're going to turn them both against you if you open your mouth. I think the only time you should say something is if you saw somebody. What if you saw a couple and one of the members of that couple had heads in their freezer? I mean, that kind of extreme.
Right.
If
Okay.
you saw them committing, Hannibal Lecter type acts or eating a friend of yours, then I think it's okay to go ahead and tell and say something
Right.
and do something. Other than that,
Sure.
as far as interpersonal things, I think most of the time it's best just to let a couple be a couple and stand
Right.
back. I mean, what can you do?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Marisa. It's
Hmm.
interesting. It's interesting you use that example because when you were talking about that, I actually have a memory that I have had regretted for quite some time. I'll never forget. So it was in the late 80s or mid 80s, somewhere in there, whenever Top Gun came out, the original movie, and it was in the Dollar Theater, and I went to watch it again with a friend. And we came out, and there was a guy arguing with, I'm assumedly his girlfriend, at their car, and it was dark, it was nighttime, it was a later movie that we saw, and he wasn't hitting her, but it looked very close to that happening. And I remember looking at my friend and saying, should we do something? And we decided that we shouldn't get involved. Now, since then, I have heard all these kinds of stories where a person decides not to get involved and then something horrible happens. And then I've also heard stories where someone gets involved and they end up getting stabbed or shot or killed or whatever when they try to help someone in that situation. I don't think it's so cut and dry, but I agree with what you said, Marisa, that there are situations when you should react if it's going to protect someone else. But I think you have to, in certain situations, you have to be very careful what you do. I think probably the best thing I could have done in retrospect, again, there's that 2020 again, would have been to call the police and let them know that I don't know what's going to happen, but there's a situation here in a public place where I think someone's life might be in danger. I don't know for sure or whatever, and sometimes maybe that's the best way to handle something like that. But
right, and you got there from wisdom, from living life and growing older. You
right.
didn't think of that then because you were too young to think of that then.
That's true. That's true. I probably was 16, 17, somewhere in there. Yeah. Yeah. But I never forgot it because I felt like I should have done something. I felt like I was a coward, but cowardice is sometimes the better part of valor. I don't know. But anyway, so my answer to this one: are there certain situations that I like what Marisa said? You know, if it's none of your business, should definitely be silent and not act. I think her example is a really good one. You know, if it's something that's not any of your business. Now, if someone is being hurt, I think you should call the authorities, or you should get someone else involved. I mean, my gosh, for a lot less, we've had to call the authorities. We have neighbors that are past the quiet hours. We live in an apartment, and these are people that don't respect the rules of the apartment that we live in, and they're banging around or square dancing up there at night, or they've got their own little personal bowling station and pins set up in the living room, and they're bowling up there. I don't know what they're doing. That's definitely not a situation, in my opinion, where you just be silent and don't do anything. They're never going to learn. I don't know what else to do except for occasionally when that happens. Because in the past now, I have confronted people directly about things like that, gone over the next day, knocked on their door, and it has always ended badly. When you announce to someone that you're their neighbor and they're being too noisy, oh, I've been too noisy. Oh, you just wait. And then it gets worse.
Oh, no.
So it's a dicey situation sometimes, some of these situations that people get into. But I think what Marisa also said, and what Jen kind of alluded to as well, is that, you know, each of these situations you do learn, you do grow, and some of this you just have to make a value judgment based on experience. And you know, there are times when you should just keep your nose out of it. And it you know, each person has to make that decision for themselves. What do you think, Jen? Are there certain situations that automatically warrant that the correct and wise choice is always silence and inaction? What do you think?
Well, you guys are mentioning, you know, there's an altercation between other people. And I was actually going to ask, what if someone's being emotionally abused?
I still think it's important to intervene at this point. Well, for example, online, especially when you see someone being bullied, like if it ever happened here in the chat, as a host, I would feel it was my duty to keep the people in the chat safe and protected, and to do something to get rid of a troublemaker.
Yeah.
Or put them in timeout at least and address it. You know, I want the people that come to the chat here to feel safe from molestation by angry trolls and all of that. And so in a certainly an online situation, I have many times come to the defense of someone that I felt like was being ganged up on or teamed up on, so to speak. That's a little, there's fewer consequences to doing that online than in person. If you're in person and you see emotional abuse or any kind of abuse, then you're putting yourself in a little bit of danger by saying something or doing something. But I think that you have a duty to do that as a person that has been through, I'm not you personally, Jen, but anyone who has experienced this sort of thing and learned from it and grown from it and knows what it feels like to be emotionally abused, to do something or say something. Is that kind of what you're saying, Jen? Yeah.
And, you know, I know we've been in situations where two people are kind of getting into an argument, and I know I'm going more towards somebody else getting into an altercation more so than myself, but I'll circle back to that. And we've seen it in shows and movies and stuff too, where one of the people that's in the fight, they're like, for example, they'll say, "Right, Jen? Like, you agree with me, right?"
That happened to me the other day.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Don't pull me into this.
That happened to me the other day, as you know.
I guess if it's a situation where you're mediating, like the two people have asked you to mediate, then that's something different. But It might be better to stay silent. Like, don't drag me into this. Now, for me, staying silent, if I'm too angry, I have gotten to a place where I'm like, okay, if I know that I'm not going to respond in a respectful or loving manner to the person I'm mad at, I'm just not going to respond. And I'm going to wait until I'm ready to respond with love and respect. Because I'm dealing with a lot of anger coming up from past stuff, and I'm dealing with letting it come out, because if I keep stuffing it, it's going to be popping out sideways in all different kinds of ways and maybe be misdirected at somebody that it has nothing to do with. So as I'm walking that out, it's another reason to be very careful to just take some time and not say anything at the moment.
Right.
So yeah, I think if you're at an emotionally charged place, it probably would be a really good idea to chill for a while. Chill, baby.
Chill, baby. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, Glenn, you're up next. Are there certain situations that automatically warrant that the correct and wise choice is always, in capital letters, always, silence and inaction? What do you think?
I think the question's way too tight for me to give a definitive answer. I'll just, this automatically correct, wise, always. I mean, to me, that's just too difficult. But I just had a thought in my head. Well, what if you're speaking about inaction? What if you're standing on the shore and there's someone in the water who's drowning and you can't swim? Do you take it? And say that person is a person you don't know. Do you act or not act? Or what if that person is your child? Do you act or inact? So you can see there's a conundrum here. It's just so wide that you can't, in my mind, say always in about any situation.
Right.
Because if it's your child, you're gonna try to save them even if you drown yourself. Well,
that's true.
Well, I think most parents would.
Yeah.
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 So it's tough question.
Yeah, it is a tough question. There's a very unsettling video that's on. I'm sure it's been seen by a lot of people. These two people that are in a pool of some sort, like a whirlpool or like a hot springs or something, that many people have gone swimming in and relaxed in, no problems, and everything seems fine in the video. And the guy's in there and he's fine one minute, the next minute he seems to be struggling for some reason, and his wife gets in with him and tries to save him, and both of them ended up drowning. I mean, that's the situation we're talking about that Glenn brought up. You know, if it's your child, if it's someone that you love or care about, even if you don't, I don't think it was the case that neither of them knew how to swim, and I don't know why it was that the first guy was having it. Could have been an undertow of some sort, or who knows what happened. But it's just unsettling that happens to people. You know, by trying to help someone else, you end up drowning yourself. But, you know, if it's someone that you care about and love, you know, I would rather go out trying to help someone that I care about than stand on the shoreline and watch someone just drowned. So I think there's an analogy here. You know, it depends on the situation. It depends on what the consequences would be if you do nothing. And it has to be situation by situation. And always is an external quantifier. Just means that those are hard questions to answer. But in general, I understand what Maurice asking. She's just asking, are there situations where it is the correct and wise choice? And Glenn, I think you answered it. You know, I think we all answered it, in that there are certain situations that it may seem prudent to do nothing, and there are other situations when we should act. And you have to judge those situations through your own experience and own wisdom. And nobody can tell you whether you should or shouldn't necessarily. They weren't in the situation. I mean, oh my gosh, how many stories are there of people getting in a car accident or I've seen a few where someone has been taken over by a flash flood, or they thought they could drive through some flooding, and they end up getting swept down the river, and these bystanders, you know, try to save them. They all get together and they try to save these people. And I would like to think that I would be someone that would do that as well. And they're risking their lives to do so. I mean, if it was Jen that was in a situation like that and I wasn't around, I would want people to try to help her. So I think you have to apply these things to each situation and make a personal determination on when it's time to act and when it's time not to. And that can be very difficult, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. What do we learn by being silent and doing nothing? And wait, everyone answered this one. Yeah, I think we did. Yep. What do we learn by being silent and doing nothing in situations that tempt us to say and do? Okay, so Maurice's asking, do we learn anything by being silent and doing nothing in situations where we're tempted to react or to do something instead of doing nothing? We'll ask Marisa first. What do we learn by being silent and doing nothing in situations that tempt us to say and do? What do you think, Marisa?
We learn patience and we learn wisdom. We learn that there's great value in considering a matter, and if you're a person of faith, taking time to pray and study scripture and wait on the Lord. Certainly.
Yeah.
You learn temperance. Fiery passion of youth can still burn hot, but can be contained in a hot burning ember or coal and not raging like a bonfire. You can hopefully learn how to teach other people as well how to step back, disconnect from a temptation to act or speak when you shouldn't. And helping other people is, you learn by helping other people as well, I believe.
Sure.
And if you remember Star Trek,
Yeah.
when Kirk was taking his tests at Starfleet, and you remember the Kobayashi Maru, the unwinnable scenario?
I do. Yeah.
I keep thinking of that, so I brought it up. And it wasn't the way to win the scenario. The winning was from how you maintained yourself in the scenario. And I think that's exactly what this life is about. It's not about how you're going to win per se, but you win in how you carry yourself. Go out in glory, go out in, discretion, go out, loudly or quietly. If you can do it with grace, with wisdom, with dignity, with compassion, with good things, with virtues, then you win. That's winning. When you can have those things no matter what the scenario ends up like, whether you're dying or saving people from death.
Wow. I love it. Thank you, Marisa.
Beautiful. Thank you, Marisa.
What do you think, Jen? What do we learn by being silent and doing nothing in situations that tempt us to say and do? What do you think?
I think sometimes it gives us a moment or a handful of moments to look at why we're upset. Is it truly something that was done to us, or is it our own pride and ego?
Yeah.
That's bruised or deflated.
Right.
We get the chance to look at it and think, am I overreacting, or am I underreacting? Am I reacting at a level-headed place? And it also keeps you from doing or saying something that you would regret. One thing I've realized is that when our words are so powerful, and I always think about that scripture about the power of life and death being in the tongue. When I've had people that I really care about say things about me that have either undermined decisions I'm making or just different things, it's amazing how people's words can just bop around in your head for a long time, how they can affect you.
Yeah.
And so having that in mind, I think it's, when we reflect on how other people's words have affected us, I think it kind of helps us chill out and try not to respond in the heat of the moment because of that, because we're aware of how words can affect other people. And so we too want to be a good steward of our own words and how we come across to people.
Sure.
So that's my answer.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate that. All right, I'll go next, and then we'll hear from Glenn. I like Marisa's answer. I like Jen's answer. I think that we learn patience. That's what Marisa said, and that was going to be my answer. When we are silent and doing nothing in a situation, and then I'm going to tie it into Jen's answer. She's saying, we learn to by these different situations that we come into over time through experience. We learn not to react in the moment out of our emotions, which seems to be kind of where everyone's coming from tonight with a lot of this. Learning not to do a spit take or a knee-jerk is probably better, knee-jerk reaction to whatever's going on, whatever the situation. We do learn by being silent and doing nothing instead of when we're tempted to do and say something. I've just learned so much by taking some time and processing. If you're in a work situation, maybe you don't have that luxury. Maybe you have to respond in some way to a boss. But, I think even in a work situation, if you're feeling like if you react right then and there, that it's not going to be good for you or the other person. Even in a work situation, it seems like it's better to say, look, I'm going to think about what you said, and I'll get back to you on this. And maybe that's not the answer they want, but it's the answer I would give. If I'm feeling like if I react right then, it's going to be tinged by my emotions and feelings. But what we learn when we don't do that in experience, to me, is always patience. And also what Jen was saying, it's all we encounter the same situations. We think about how we reacted in the past, and we learn how to handle it differently than we did before. And then, as Glenn says, we have to stuff it up. So we learn from our mistakes if we're paying attention. So all those things enter into it. What we learn from times that we didn't stop ourselves, we reacted, and the consequences may have been dire, and so we learn from that. So it's patience, it's discernment, it's understanding, it's learning not to react out of intense feelings in the moment. All those things play into it, in my opinion. That's my answer, and we'll hear from Glenn last on this one. What do we learn by being silent and doing nothing in situations that tempt us to say and do? Glenn, what do you say about this one?
I think I'm taking a slightly different tack on this one.
Great.
I think the lesson is in the reflection, just evaluation of how it's gone, because I think there's always a possibility that there may be, even if when you're tempted to do and say something, that may well be the best course. I don't think you can definitively say that that it's always about being silent. I think you've just got to run with what you feel in the moment, and then you reflect upon it. The lesson lies within that, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Glenn. I'll just, before we move on to the next one, I will say that online in particular, I used to be a person that would engage in these debates. I would get engaged in a lot of debates on Facebook and things like that, or in chats where someone was making in my opinion, a ridiculous statement, and I would feel it was my duty to correct them. And I learned that was something I did learn over time. I don't do it anymore. I just don't. If people are debating, I just let them debate, and I don't enter into the fray, so to speak, especially on Facebook anymore. But if you go back 10 years, 12 years, and look at my Facebook, you'll see these, unless they've been removed, but you'll see these times when someone makes a statement of some sort, whether it be political or religious or whatever, where people are weighing in on their opinions and stuff. And I would do that. And then sometimes you would have these threads on Facebook or in chat that would be ongoing, where someone is answering what you said, and then another person weighs in, and you're answering them, and they're answering you, and they're answering the original poster, and on and on and on it goes. And sometimes we can get very emotionally involved in these things, and sometimes it's not the best thing. The best thing is to say and do nothing. So that's what I've learned. So that was good answers from everyone on that one. No, they're all good answers. All right, next one. What did we learn? Nope, I did that one. Okay, so what times in your life did you wish for or experience others being silent and inactive during a challenge or difficult situations? If you were left alone without people trying to get involved, did it help, or how and why? Let me make sure I understand this. It's a kind of a long question. So the first part, what times in your life did you wish for or experiencing others being silent or inactive during a challenging or difficult situation?
Can I explain that better, or do you get it?
Go ahead.
Was there a time in your life where you needed people to back off, where you needed that space, where you didn't need someone to come in and say and do, and you actually got what you needed? That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, I'll go first. I feel like I have met people in my life that seem to intuitively know to do that, and I've learned by watching them. I definitely have been in situations where I wish that people would just leave me alone and let me deal with my own situation, and not try to weigh in. Sometimes I don't want to hear someone's opinion. Jen and I were just talking about this the other day, how, in certain situations, I had a really rough day on Thursday. I just had a lot of things weighing on me, and Jen and I, particularly in the job situation and finance. It's the same thing every other area of our life. We're doing wonderfully, but finances seems to be the thing that we can't seem to figure out the best route, and it's made difficult by things in the world and expectations of getting a vaccine, and we're not going to talk about that, but it's just harder to find a job, in my opinion, than it ever has been, and everything being online, yada yada yada. And we have rent coming up, and we're again not sure how it's all going to come together. And I just really had a rough day on Thursday, and I was sharing with Jen in the past that certain members of my family didn't seem to want to understand that if I was dealing with sadness, or if I was just having a hard time, and I didn't need them to give me a bunch of solutions. I needed someone to come alongside me and just understand that it's okay that I'm having a rough time. It's okay that I'm sad or angry, whatever the emotion is, and let that be okay. But Jen did. Jen just, she asked me what I needed, and she was supportive and loving and kind. She's always that way, but it's especially noticeable when, I'm seeing that her reaction to me being sad, although it might be difficult for her, is different than what I'm used to. What I'm used to, at least in my family, is people saying, well, you should do this. You should do that, throwing solutions at me when I'm not in a place to find solutions. And then when the feeling, whether it's sadness or anger or frustration, whatever it is, when that passes, then I look for solutions. When I'm in a better place, then I might be in a better place to accept someone's suggestions and, well, you should try this or you should do this, because there are plenty of people that want to weigh in on what I should do. And that's been that way my whole life. And it's not always the best thing for me. So, Marisa, in answer to your question, I have experienced the other end of that more than someone that notices, except recently the way Jen reacted to how I was feeling on Thursday. I have experienced the other end of it, where they want to get involved. They want to tell me how I made mistakes, and I wouldn't be in this situation if I had done this. And that's not, I already know. I don't need someone to tell me, that I've made, financial mistakes in the past, or I didn't get this job that everyone said I should get, or I didn't take this suggestion. And if I had, they think they know that things would be fine now if I had done what they suggested I do. And I've really had a lot of that. So it was very good for me on Thursday to experience being treated in a different way. Someone that understood that I was not in a place in that moment for solutions. I just needed someone to be there with me in me feeling frustrated and me feeling sad. So it was a very different experience. Okay, so let's see. Trying to get involved, did it help, or how? Why? Yeah, I think I've answered it. Let's hear from Jen. What do you think, Jen? What times in your life did you wish others would be silent or inactive during a challenging or difficult situation? If you were left alone without people trying to get involved, did it help, or how? Why?
I think I used to want people to get more involved because I was afraid to make a decision on what to do and how to respond and all that stuff.
Sure.
Now, it's been a little more beneficial to be surrounded by people that actually ask me if I want to talk, or if I'm still processing, what's happened. And then they just let me know that they're there when I get to that point where I do want or need to talk. So that's been very beneficial. Would you mind repeating the question again real quick?
Oh, absolutely. What times in your life did you wish for or experience others being silent or inactive during a challenging or difficult situation? Kind of like what I described the other day. If you were experiencing that and someone just jumped into solutions for you and just tried to figure it out for you rather than accepting that you're just in a difficult place and letting you get through that.
Well, on the flip side, I think there's been times where I've thought there would be people that not getting involved in the sense of like solving the issue for me, but there were people that I thought would be more supportive and they just disappeared. So that on the other spectrum of that question, that's been interesting. So I answered the other spectrum first, and then I just shared that little bit. So
okay,
it's interesting.
Did you have anything more you wanted to add about that?
No, that's it for
good?
me.
Okay,
I'm good.
All right, let's hear from Glenn next on this. Glenn, what times in your life did you wish for or experiencing others being silent or inactive during a challenging or difficult situation? If you were left alone without people trying to get involved, did it help or not, and how and why?
Oh, yeah, okay. A lot of this is in the dim, dark past, to be honest. Yeah, it's all happened. As you're gaining experience, you find some people who just want to blab. They always want to have the last word, etc. But with experience and age, I tend to have people around me that don't do that, so it's not an issue.
Right.
I think you're making. I think it's just constructive choices and of the people that you associate with as you get down the line.
Yeah, that's true.
You're all on that very similar wavelength. People know when to step forward. They know when to step back. It's an innate, intuitive thing that some people have. Like I said in chat, perception. Some have it, some don't.
Yeah.
So I don't have this situation at all.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, I've learned to what you're saying, Glenn. I've learned in the past, if I was struggling with something, I made the mistake of putting it out there on social media. I would say, I'm really struggling with this. And back then, I sort of invited by sharing it, I was inviting people to make comments. And I get that now. My desire was just to let people know. I mean, there are people that would pray, or there are people that, when I'm ready, they might put a suggestion up there or something, or whatever it might be. But I learned, and I was sharing this with Jen, I learned over time, when this would happen, I would just isolate myself because this had happened so often to me that I just wouldn't share it. So I would deal with it alone. And, sometimes that was the best thing for me. And then when I would be done and I'd move on. But I have, to what you were saying, Glenn, I have now surrounded myself with people that are better, particularly Jen, and I have a few friends that I could have, if I needed to, I could have shared with them, I'm really having a rough day, and reached out to them, and they wouldn't have given me unneeded suggestions. They would have just commiserated or empathized, and that would have been fine. So that part's getting better. Certainly wouldn't share with my family. There's no point in going to a dry well in that way, because I know what's going to happen. So there's no way that I would share that with certain people now at this point. All right, Marisa, you're up on this one, and I probably don't have to read the question since you put it up, but what's your answer to this one? What do you have to add on that?
Go ahead and read it again, please.
What times in your life did you wish for or experiencing others being silent or inactive during a challenging or difficult situation? And if you were left alone without people trying to get involved, did it help? And how or why?
Absolutely. When I think about the time that I was going through a breakup with a wedding that got called off many, many years ago, and which ended up being a blessing in disguise, thankfully. But it was a hideous emotional, trauma back then, But everybody gave me the room that I needed. I didn't have a bunch of people hounding me or trying to do for me, or, it was almost as if after going through that kind of trauma, the hand of God just came over me and protected me, and people just backed off. Yeah. And I'm not saying that nobody wanted to be, most people just left me alone, but the people that I needed there to be there for me, my best friend, Bobby, that my mother at the time, they were my support. Everybody else pretty much just backed off, but if they were narcissists or enablers, they wouldn't have had anything good to contribute anyway. So just as well that they backed off. It helped. I couldn't have recovered the way I did if they would have just pushed in forward and continued with a negative narrative or butting in where they just didn't need to be. So I credit God for giving me that after going through something like that, the time and the space that I needed. So I don't think I could have recovered from that the way that I did if I hadn't had that. So that's the one that sticks out most in my mind.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate that so much. Did everyone answer that one? I think so. Oh, something just happened to hold on.
No, what happened?
I don't know. Is everybody still here?
I think so.
Still here.
Okay, I don't know what that was. I just lost my whole screen for a second. I was responding to believe in the chat, and I pressed the send button, and then everything just kind of went to another screen or something. I'm not sure how that happened. Anyway, all right, last question, guys. Does the desire to say or do always stem from a negative place? Example, control, pride, manipulation. Or can there be positive intentions? Example, help, comfort, and advice. What a great question. I think we finished with, in my opinion, the best question.
Read it one more time? Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, absolutely. Does the desire to say or do always stem from a negative place? For example, control, pride, manipulation. Or can there be positive intentions? For example, help, comfort, or advice. Do you want to go first, Jen?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I don't think it always comes from a negative place. I think one thing you and I practice, and it's not every time, it was more so in the beginning, but when we'd have a bump and emotions were running high, we assured each other that this, this wasn't the end of anything, especially when you're coming from a past where fights just exploded and leaving was used as an abusive tool, like abandonment or divorce was used as a threat, or leaving or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, I think sometimes it can be positive. I don't think it's always negative.
Right.
To be able to speak up and tell someone what you're feeling, and do it in a calm manner, and that, we'll be okay, we'll get through this, whether they need space to cool down and come back to the table and talk about it, or get it out on the table right away. That's always an option. So yeah, I don't think it's always negative.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I'll go next on this. It's as I just said, it's probably the best or my favorite. You know what? It's my favorite question. It may not be everybody's, but it's mine. Because it brings up the possibility of there being both times a negative place. Your reaction, your desire to say or do something can come from a negative place. And Marisa put a couple good examples in there. Control, pride, manipulation. I would add ego to that, but it's not an exhaustive list. She just gave a couple of examples. So control, pride, manipulation, ego. There can be many negative reasons why you feel a desire to say or do something in a moment that you're dealing with something someone said or a situation or whatever. And we've kind of talked about the results of that a little bit, but I would say that there are positive things as well. If you see someone struggling and your desire or your intention is positive to help them, she gave examples of help, comfort, and advice that don't come from ego. It comes from, for me at least, it comes from a true desire to be there for that person. So both things are possible. I definitely hope that my intentions come from a more positive place if I feel like I need to say or do something. And then the part that's experienced comes from who the person is, what the situation is, and whether they're asking me for help, comfort, or advice. I hope that I don't just offer those things unless they've given some kind of indication that that's what they want. Sometimes people just want to be heard. So I will pay particular attention, like if it's a post on Facebook and someone's sharing that they're sad. I might simply put a heart emoji on there, or hugging heart emoji or something like that, just to let them know that their comment was read. If they worded that, if they're sharing that they're sad and they want someone to pray for them, then I might answer, I'll definitely pray for you, and hang in there, or something like that. But if I know the person very well and know what they want in these times, like if it was Jen, for instance, I feel like it's a lot easier for me to know what to do. And it started by me learning, by asking her questions. So if she was sad, I would say, do you want to just talk? Do you want me just to listen? Or do you want me to respond? And I did that several times when we were first getting to know each other. Now I don't need to do it anymore because I know what she wants. And she may be in a place where she doesn't want me to do the same things as before, but she'll tell me. So that relationship is very easy for me to know when it's I should help or comfort or give advice or be loving and all that. And the other part, the negative thing, as I said in my answer to some of the other things, I've really come a long way in my maturity, and I take time before I do something from a negative place, or make a comment from a negative place, or do anything in reaction to what someone else is going through, because I don't want to act out of my ego or out of my emotions. Nothing good comes from that, in my opinion. So that's a really good question. This is like the third time I've said that, but I really like that one. Okay, Jen and I answered. Let's hear from Marisa, and we'll let Glenn go last on this last question. Marisa, does the desire to say or do always stem from a negative place, or can there be positive intentions? What do you say?
I say it can be both because of our human nature, our flesh. We've got a propensity to be vain, to be selfish, to be arrogant, to be prideful, but we don't have to be those things. And we can have good intentions. We can have virtuous qualities where we genuinely want to help people. We want to offer assistance or advice. But even if we have good intentions, our intervention may not come at the time or at all at a time of our choosing. If, again, the value of being still, being silent, taking some time to wait, and if you're a person of faith, then taking the time to pray and ask the Lord what to do and wait on His time. We may have all the equipment and all the gumption to do the job, but it may not be time to do that job. We may have to wait for the right time, if that time even comes up. Sometimes the hard part, I think, of being an adult is knowing that we've got everything we need to do something, but damn it, we're just not allowed to do it, or we can't do it when we want to. And that comes with, getting rid of the ego, getting rid of the vanity of thinking that we just, if we can do it, then we should just do it. No, we don't always have to do it.
Right.
I've had to struggle with that. I think, well, if I'm not supposed to do this, then why am I set up with this and that? And, I should just go ahead and do it.
Right.
And I've had to learn the hard way that, no, you could have everything you need to do something. That doesn't mean and give you an automatic license to go ahead and do it.
Right.
So that was a lesson I've had to learn along the way.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Marisa. All right, Glenn, you're up last on this last question. Does the desire to say or do always stem from a negative place, or can there be positive intentions?
I'd say both. But from my point of view, taking the negative approach takes too much energy, man. It's just too much effort because it just fires you up into some frenzy of yuck. And where does it get you? So I think, like I used that example in chat when, as you all know, Sandra flooded the house 3 times. Well, I was obviously pissed off to high heaven. So what I said to her was not in any shape or form positive. But what it did come for in the back of my mind was the positive. Okay, what I said wasn't positive, but it was coming from a positive place, in that I was thinking, okay, how do we resolve this? That was after I finished my tirade. I'm saying, okay, what have we got to do so that this doesn't happen again? So we're looking, so you get the point. You can say things that sound negative, but they actually point to positive. I suppose you can call it seeing both sides of the equation. I don't know, but it worked because we haven't flooded the house since. Mind you, Sandra's kept in a cage, and I've got the lock and the key to it, so she can't get out and do it now. Ouch.
Gotcha.
Do you think I was serious? No, she hasn't. See, all we did was we fixed the sink so that she didn't have a bucket in the sink. It can't flow over. Problem solved. Positive situation resolution. So,
yeah. Gotcha.
Gee, that didn't go down too well, that joke, did it?
Oh, I'm sorry. There you go.
No, don't do gratuity.
I love you, Glenn.
Thanks, Grips.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right. Well, that's all the questions, and we're at the end of the write-up. Marisa says, truly, in my experience, if there's nothing I can do to better the situation, then the best thing I can do is wait. Prayer and talking to God has a much better effect on myself and the ongoing situations that trouble me. It is times when I am fussing and ranting and complaining about this or that which puts an emotional burr in my saddle that I feel like Jesus is giving me the look. He certainly has heard it all before. After I'm finished with my fit du jour, as it were, I feel immediate shame and remorse for my hissy crawl under my rock and shut the hell up. When I put things in his hands and praise him, I see miracles happen. I just need to work on getting a whole lot better at realizing much more quickly when I need to chill and be still. Chill, baby. Personally, I have found art, writing, and music to be wonderful, therapeutic ways for me to still say and do something in a positive way that does not interfere with anyone or anything. It simply is. How much happier would we all be if we could spend more time just simply being? And then the last quote, silence can be used to solve problems and a smile to avoid them. And that's from our friend Paulo Coelho. All right.
Just for Glenn.
Just for Glenn.
Paulo Coelho.
Just for Glenn. All right. Well, we've reached the end of our broadcast. Thank you again, Marisa, for a wonderful write-up. And it is definitely appreciated. Thank you to everyone who has been listening. We appreciate you guys very much. So next week, Glenn is going to be doing the write-up. He's elected to do that, and there are a couple of weeks that he will not be here. We definitely understand there's some trips planned or some things on his end that he needs to take care of, and we understand that. So we're glad that he's going to do a write-up for next week. And then I'm working on a write-up, and this comes from John, one of our listeners who posed a question. It's how he and I actually met. He's been in the chat a couple times. And he's asking the question, is God a narcissist? And that, along with some of my responses to that question, I just think it's a great question. And also Jen has put some things together to try to answer that question. And we've had some conversations about this privately. And I think it will make a great write-up. And I was going to do it the week after that, but I think I want to wait till Glenn can be involved, because I think this is a really good topic, and we might do something else while he's gone. And then when he comes back, I can write it and then have it waiting for when all of us are here, because I do want everyone to be able to answer questions and things like that. I think that would be a good idea for a topic like this, because I think it's important. But we'll let you know the week after who's going to do the write-up and all of that. But next week, we can look forward to Glenn getting back in the writer's seat again before he takes a couple weeks off. Okay, so from me, I wish everyone a good night, and hope everyone has a good week on the last Sunday in October, beginning a new month. Gosh, this year is already flying by. 2022 is almost in the can already. All right. So let's hear from Jen. Jen, say goodbye to the peoples, please. And if you have any closing comments about tonight's topic or anything else, please take a minute to share them.
All right. I think this is a wonderful write-up, and it's definitely pertained to some stuff that I'm going through right now. So that was also a plus to just be able to share and hear you guys share as well. And I really, really appreciate everybody's comments in the chat. We just love it when you guys share things that you've gone through, things that you're going through, just your ideas and thoughts and opinions on any of the topics that we bring to the table to discuss. So we just really, really appreciate you guys for being a part of this. And without you all, it would just be four weirdos sitting on a YouTube channel talking. Okay, yeah. You guys are supposed to laugh. It was silent. I like speak for yourself, Jen. I'm like, maybe they don't agree. Silence is golden. Not in that situation. Okay, come on. Anyway, we love you guys. We hope you have a great week. We hope you enjoyed this discussion and Marisa's beautiful write-up. And looking forward to seeing all of you next week. Thank you so much for being here, and good night.
Thank you, Jen. So Glenn has corrected me. We'll have him say goodbye next. So he'll be here the next 3 weeks. So we'll do his write-up, unless he has something that comes out of that write up, somewhere in there, I will squeeze this this write up that I want to work on, and I've already started kind of working on it in my head. So we'll let you know when that's going to be up. And so next 3 weeks, we will have Glenn here. So my apologies that I made that mistake. Glenn, if you could say goodbye to the peoples, if you have any closing comments on tonight's broadcast or anything else you'd like to share, please take a minute to do that.
Sure. Okay, I'll say goodnight. As Scripture said, be here the next 3 weeks. I've posted a link in the chat. We have change of pace for next week in the write-up. There's an article that was in the Daily Mail. If you can't see it, it's up about 4 or 5 comments, but I'll just put it there again.
I got it on the screen.
Yeah, it's the 8th one up.
There's a lot of stuff that's come out of this, a whole lot of ethical, philosophical questions. I think will go down very well, whether you are a believer or not. But I think it does pose some serious questions about just how people see the world, and I think we'll be very interested to hear the differing views that I hope will come forward. So,
okay, great. Well, we look forward to that. And Glenn, I can't, if I click on the link, it doesn't open for me, because it'll just show it on the screen. If you could put that in the private comments for me, and I can read it later.
Sure. No problem.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you, Glenn. And last but certainly not least, we'll hear from Marisa if you have any closing comments about the topic tonight, and say goodbye to the people. And let's close this down for us, if you will. That was weirded strangely, but you know what I mean.
Oh, thank you so much. What a great discussion. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you to everybody who watches the replay and shares this content out on your social media. Remember, we are here, God willing, every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on True Story Live. I did place some links in the chat for some collaborations with me and Crips and Jen on my channel, as well as a link for Dr. Sleep, their ASMR reading channel. I did not get to place a link for Out of the Dark, their narcissistic abuse channel.
Thank you.
But if you guys want to throw that link in real quick, go for it. I mean, I'm sorry I forgot. I should have done it.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
I think that it was very hard for me to learn when to shut up, when to be still, when to hold back. And I'm still working on it. But if there was ever anything worth doing for me as an adult, that's it. My grandpa used to say, choose your battles. That's absolutely true. Even the art of war doesn't tell you to just jump in there. The art of war tells you win by not fighting, basically, if you can,
Right.
And I think we can apply that to our life, to not be ready to jump into a fray just because we want to be heard. In emergency situations, that's another thing, and we talked about that. But always consider where your provocation to respond is coming from. If it's coming from a negative source that just wants you to react, that's a red flag right there. Just a little helpful tip. Say no to that. Try so hard, because there's so many negative people out there who want you to respond and react negatively to their negative stimulation. And it's just a waste of time. You're spinning your wheels in the mud. There's better things to do. Yeah. Thanks again, everybody. If you have any ideas or comments or suggestions for a topic for us to discuss, reach out to any one of us. I put my email in the chat, and I know you can reach out to Glenn and Jason and Jen if you have any thoughts or ideas. And I take prayer requests too. My email's in the chat. Thank you, everybody. What a great show. And I'm looking forward to next Sunday night here on True Story Live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. One other announcement. Crips and Jen and myself, along with our friend Peanut at the Nut House, we are doing a production of a dramatic reading, Reader's Theater, of the script of Jaws at our friend Scully's on Scully's channel, Scully's House of Thrillers. We're doing that November 5th, Saturday evening. I believe we're starting at 8, but I will be doing a promo. And on my channel, Scully will be doing one on his. And I believe there'll be a promo here on True Story Live channel. For those of you who may be interested, please go to Scully's House of Thrillers, ring his bell so you'll know when we're ready to do that. And I hope you'll come and enjoy or catch that replay. God bless you all. Have a great rest of the day or rest of the night. And God willing, we'll see you next Sunday right here on True Story Live. Good night.